What up, Nation? We're back with more from the DCUO test server. I'm Var here, and today we're taking another look at the stat boost that's given to under-tiered players. A bit of a change from the last video. So someone brought up a good point in the chat. I'm not gonna name names, but you know who you are. And it was an awesome comment. The reason why I would be able to queue for everything would have to do with the fact that I had been a CR 313, and so it was showing still in my stats. I'll show you what they were referring to. Even though I wasn't wearing the gear and had deleted it, I had still obtained it. Therefore, it was showing my equipped combat rating at the 35 or whatever, or excuse me, at the 35 or whatever, but it was still showing my regular combat rating at like a 313. And so that would be why I was able to queue into the content, and probably why I was getting boosted the way I was, which I don't really understand the boosting, but that would at least explain why I could queue in at such a low CR and sometimes without gear at all. So to test that theory, we have to then go and start a new toon. And so that's what I did today. I went and I started a brand new toon on test. I have not been above combat rating 32. I've only got that gear equipped. I've got no arts. I'm not in the league, so I have no buffs. And going back to my stats, I have a might of 1,525, which seems pretty reasonable for a combat rating 32 with literally, I'm guessing, no skill points. Let's go see what my skill points look like. Yes, well, no, I still have, for some reason, 374 skill points, but I have none allotted. So I don't know why the test server just automatically gives you that number of SP to start with, but I have allotted none, and I'm just going to leave it that way because there's really no reason to allot any. You know, we've got our gear. That's what we're really checking right now. So to test the theory, and it was really easy to test, I just came and went to queue for a solo, and as you can see, I am locked based on combat rating, which they actually said wasn't, I thought they said wasn't going to be a thing. I'm locked from anything above tier 1. So obviously that combat rating difference was the reason I was able to queue for all of those. So I can still queue for everything in tier 1. I cannot queue for anything above tier 1, and you'll notice it shows you the combat rating requirements, right? For each tier. So you can see the requirement. Right now I'm only a combat rating 34, so I only meet the requirement for 30 plus, which is what all these should be. I'm just skipping through them kind of randomly. Yes, so these are all just 30 plus CR missions, okay? But when I queue for one, watch what happens. So when I pop into the instance, all of a sudden my CR is a 60. Now it was only necessary for it to be a 30 plus for me to come in here. So why I need to be buffed to a 60, I don't know. I have never had CR 60 gear in my inventory. And when we go back to my stats, and I want to look quickly at that first before we get, see? Combat rating 32. Equipped CR 60. I have not got anything equipped that should make me a combat rating 60, and it's showing that I'm getting a buff to that, so I don't know why. And then when we look at my stats, my might definitely got a buff. All of a sudden my might's 2,245, so I got one heck of a stat buff as far as my might is concerned to come into a mission that I was already the CR to get into. So the end result here, and we're going to check another zone, but basically what I'm seeing now that I'm doing this test the correct way, thank you very much, for fixing that for me. What we see is you can only go in your tier, but for some reason inside your tier you're going to get a buff, at least in solo content. And I do want to point out though, it was said by the devs that they wanted things to be where, at least in solo content, if you wanted to play as a DPS you could, and if you wanted to play your role, they would hope that you would, they basically wanted to make it, or the goal would be to make it that you would still be able to get through solo content even when playing a role such as healer, tank, controller, for those people who just, that was what they wanted to do and they didn't want to, because the part of the problem right now is if you play a role, and part of what keeps people from really focusing on roles is that you still have to focus on a DPS loadout and gear just to get through the game if you're going to do any solo content. So what their goal was to make it so that that would not be the case, that you could play your role through the entire game and still achieve things. That might be, and all I'm saying is that might be what we're seeing right here, and that might be the reason for the buff in only solo content. We're going to try and test duos, but unfortunately with the population on test server the way it is, it's hard to test any group content. So, you know, you're going to see more of that when we go live. Lyda and I will do duos and we'll check all this, but that may be the purpose of what we're seeing here. So, but I'm going to go and check another zone anyway, because I want to see. Okay, let's just go to Monarch playing cards and just see. I'm sure it's the same for all of these, but I'm just curious if certain missions inside the tier require different buffs. Okay, still a combat rating 60, so that didn't change. Still 2245 might, so that didn't change. So it looks like all of the tier 1 is going to be a similar buff when you come in it, but again, you will not be able to queue for things outside your tier, at least as far as right now. So we'll keep you posted on if that changes. The next thing we are going to cover will be the clamping. So we're going to look at things from the opposite perspective. A high tiered player with high SP going into a low tier mission, and see just what that clamp looks like in comparison to what the new players will be working with versus the old veteran players. So stay tuned. Be sure to sub, guys. Keeps me alive. Share the video, give it a like to spread the word, and we will see you on the flip side. For Lyda and Bodhi, this is Var saying, play on.